Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for Friday, September 20th, 2024. I'm Jason Priestess. That's Chris Lauterbach, and Chase Brown, the Skull Session Master, is in with us today. Chase, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no problem. We were just arguing offset about baseball pitchers and how I believe more of them could be hitters because of what Ohtani's doing, and you guys are like, no. So we're not going to devote the show to that, but instead let's argue about roller coasters. Because I think Cedar Point yesterday announced a new roller coaster called Siren's Curse. It's the tallest, longest, and fastest tilt coaster in North America. I haven't been to Cedar Point in far too long. I need to go. You guys coaster fans, would you ride that thing?
I mean, for me, I've been to Cedar Point a couple of times. I've been to Kings Island a couple of times, but those were primarily when I was in middle school, high school. I haven't gone back since I've been able to make that choice on my own. Those were more so field trips. I had to go. If I were to choose, though, I'll stay away.
No, you wouldn't ride that beast?
That thing sounds scary to me. I'm not in for high speeds going up at high heights. I'm not for getting on a swing. Like the Windseeker was a ride I was on when I was in middle school, and I felt like I was going to be flown into Lake Erie with how tall and how wide I was on that ride.
All right, fair enough. Chris, you?
I'm glad Chase said that because I was going to say I'm easily the biggest wuss out of the three of us when it comes to that stuff. I haven't rode a roller coaster since I was a kid. I have zero interest to do it. I hope my kids hate it so they don't try to drag me on those things when they get older. I don't like scary movies. I don't like paying to be scared on top of all of that, right? Like you spend a whole bunch of money and wait in line for a couple hours to be scared. I understand why that is, a great thing for folks, but that's a big old note for me. Yeah, this thing's what, like tilting and then like reconnects to the tracks or something? Like, no, not happening.
Man, I do enjoy coasters. I'll ride them any chance I get, but I have limits. Like I'll ride a coaster at Cedar Point. I won't ride anything at the Ohio State Fair. Like I trust some more safety.
Putting it together.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do especially my kid was little, we'd go to the fair and we would do anything that didn't get off of like 3 feet off the ground. We're like, that's fine. That's not fine. Like, look at that dude. We're not getting on that thing. No way.
Yeah. You see the dudes that put it together. Yeah. It's how fast does it go and how high does it go? It's like, yep, nope. I think I'll just go get me a deep fried something.
Yeah. Presumably Cedar Point's got some engineering and legal resources that the State Fair doesn't have when it comes to rides. They've checked this stuff out. But huge show today, man. The Bucs are back in action after a week off. Marvin Harrison Jr. earns one of football's most prestigious awards. Marshall's head coach has got jokes ahead of this one.
Once you get into conference, I hope, I haven't looked at all the conference schools, but I hope and I pray that there's no Ohio State in the Sun Belt Conference right now.
Michigan faces another test of life without cheating and so much more. Let's start with the Buckeyes back in action after the rare week 3 bye. No game last week, made an improvement week for Ohio State. They worked on a bunch of stuff. Guys, if you're Ryan Day, what are you trying to improve upon? I mean, you can say a little bit of that first game, they weren't crisp offensively early and some stuff like that, but man, it's hard to find things to improve on with this team. Like, where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah, when it's 106-6 or 100, whatever the cumulative score is right now, it's hard to find some things. But that's Day's job, right? Because you're going to win these games and you're seeking perfection. I think for me, coming out of the bye week, it'd probably be a couple things. You want to make sure your discipline continues to tighten up. I think they're like 78th in the country. It's something like that in penalties per game at like 6.5. So maybe cleaning up some of that stuff would be a good thing to see. I think other than that, it might just be how fast do they start, right? Because I think one of the things I think a lot of us feel good about this team is you've got all this veteran leadership. You feel like they're approaching this like it's, every week's a business trip kind of thing. But will that hold true after a bye week? You heard everything about improvement week and you still had a week off from playing a game. Do they come out and look a little sluggish or do they come out and start fast? If they don't, I don't think it signals anything is wrong with the team kind of thing. But I will be interested just because I've bought into this different kind of mindset that this team has that I like the analogy Day was talking about that a lot of people say the season is a marathon and he says no, it's a series of sprints. So are they ready to come out fast for this next sprint? Will be something that be one of the things I'm looking for. Chase, what about you?
I agree with everything that you just said, Chris. I think too the run game is something that Ryan Day really wants to get established early in the season. When you have two great backs like Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, it can be sparks flying, can be fireworks, it can be home runs. But, I think Ryan Day has made a couple of points about wanting those backs to maybe just take a few hits between the tackles, see James Peoples get out there on the field and what he can do as a reliable third back, maybe even get Sam Williams-Dixon in there. I think you're really looking to build depth in that room, but you're also looking to see if those guys can continue to take those hits inside, maybe even pop one out to the second and third level.
One of the cool things from bye weeks the last couple of years is coaches talking about discovering the marvels of YouTube TV and their multi-view for Saturday viewing. And I think Dabo was saying something about it this week. Day didn't say that, but he got to see his son play high school football as a quarterback at DeSales. And that's got to be tough because it's got to be really hard for him to make games and kind of devote the attention you want to as a parent. And he watched some college football and didn't give us the YouTube quote, but talked about some other aspects. Chase, I don't think folks who don't work in the industry appreciate how nice some of these off weeks can be in terms of just being a fan, kicking back, watching some games, knowing that you're not covering Ohio State, you're not coaching Ohio State. What's that like for you?
I love weekends like this last weekend, just to be able to watch teams across the country play. I really don't know if I can maybe peel back the curtain a little bit for some viewers that don't know the process, of the AP voting. I really don't know how a journalist that covers one specific team is able to vote for a top 25 poll, having knowledge of whatever these teams look like on a week-to-week basis. Because I really feel like on the days that we're covering Ohio State, it is a dawn until dusk siege. But then you get a day like Saturday, this off weekend, where it's just sunshine and rainbows. You get to watch games at noon. You get to watch the games at 3:30. You get to watch the nightcaps. And if you're brave enough, there used to be Pac-12 after dark, but you might get a West Coast game sprinkled in there. And it was just really fun to be able to watch some of the teams like Georgia going down to the wire with Kentucky. You had a variety of games even that were just entertaining from start to finish that I just loved getting able to watch.
Yeah, and the point about the AP voters, I think a lot of it's just scoreboard checking is kind of what I would probably do. Is like, okay, that looks like a good score. They're probably a good team. They're maybe not a good team. And Day did love this week of practice. Said Tuesday was a dynamite practice. Wednesday was a hard practice, but, it wasn't all perfect. But they're getting after some stuff, and they seem, dedicated to being the best they can be. To nobody's surprise, Denzel Burke felt his targeting call was a, quote, bull crap call. I think you guys aren't surprised to hear that, are you?
I'm surprised he said bull crap instead of something else. But he calls it like he sees it. That's one of the things that I know the media love about Denzel. Obviously we've seen that replay a million times. I mean, when it first happened, I wasn't even sure who they were calling for targeting. I thought it might be Downs. It was like so bad. Like, it's like, wait, targeting on who? But whatever. Good to get him back in the fold. Miss a game, just going to make him hungry. But, problem for him in that game, obviously frustrating, I'm sure. But, keep it moving.
If I can add to that too, I think it was funny where Denzel sat down at the table and he was like, don't even bother asking me about this. And I think Bill Rabinowitz asked immediately, what is it like that you can't share your feelings? And Denzel was like, I'm really glad you asked me that. I'll tell you. And it was just so funny. He tried to put up a fight and tried to say, nobody asked me. And all the questions were about it. And you got completely unfiltered Denzel Burke. It was incredible. I
love it.
That's amazing. He's saying the defense is chasing eliteness. And I know a lot of us had Igbinosun on our cards for first to come off the field for targeting. So a little bit of an upset there. Donovan Jackson back for this game. Ryan Day says he's, quote, ready to roll. Needs to put another good week together, but we're mostly done with that. So anticipate seeing him Saturday against Marshall. What's it mean, Chase, to have Donovan Jackson back?
I think you're just going to see experience at work. Donovan Jackson is someone that just has been a consistent presence on that offensive line for a few years now. I think he really developed chemistry with Josh Simmons last year. I think in preseason camp, he developed chemistry with Seth McLaughlin, who's another experienced player. That left side of the offensive line is really going to be fortified with Donovan Jackson back. And I think you're just going to see Ohio State really rely on that side to be running off of with Travion Henderson and Quinshad Judkins and maybe even mix Will Howard coming off that side too. It'll be a very forceful, very athletic, very strong side of the line for them.
Yep, future NFL player Donovan Jackson. Chris, they found some depth, man. Austin Searveld played well in his absence when Jackson was out. Dave went as far as to say, quote, "We're going to try to find ways to get Austin into the game because we feel he's earned that opportunity. How it shakes out this week, we'll see. But right now, Tegra Shabola is the starting right guard." So kind of went out of his way to say Tegra is still that guard over there, but it seems like they like what they got out of Austin.
Yeah, it's great. It's been one of the biggest stories of fall camp, really. Folks maybe not focus on it as much because it's offensive line and it may not be sexy to the more general fan. But we went into the season saying, hey, two things have to happen, right? The offensive line has to be good and it can't afford injuries unless it develops some depth. And Will Howard has to be good in big games. And you've seen that they've at least got a little bit of depth on the inside. I'm still not sure about the tackles. But I think with Searveld, it gives you a vote of confidence as a fan that you probably didn't have coming into the season, right? Or if you did, you probably didn't think it was Searveld. I think he was maybe barely a top 300 recruit, number 15 inside offensive lineman, I think. Montgomery, I think, was number 3 in that same class, if I'm not mistaken. But it's great depth, and I think they do want to play him because you want to continue. If you saw some growth there, hey, that's great, but he's not going to grow just through practice, right? He's going to need to get some snaps in games, and to me, that's a luxury. And we'll see with Jackson. I mean, they obviously were very careful with him and acted like they could have played him a couple weeks ago against Western Michigan and opted not to. But I don't know that means he's going to see 75 snaps, tomorrow, right? Like it could be something where you do want to kind of bring him back a little more slowly or carefully because you can. And oh, by the way, that'll also give Searveld that much more chance to develop. But I think just on Jackson, real quick, I think everything you said, Chase, I agree with experience, those kinds of things. But you talk about hungry. I mean, this is a guy last year who did not go pro, not just because he wanted to come back. I know that was a piece of it, and that's great. But he also, I don't think, had as good a season as he thought he was going to have last year. So for him to try to, get his own reps and get some better film out there while helping Ohio State win is going to be important to him too. So yeah, huge to have him back for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe him and Searveld split, not because Jackson isn't the starter. He's the starter, but because you don't necessarily have to play him, 75 snaps on Saturday if things go the way they're supposed to.
Marshall head coach Charles Huff, man, got jokes. This guy was, a lot of people might have seen it by now, but if not, he was interviewed at his presser this week, and someone touched on the talent he's going to be facing when he comes to the Horseshoe. And here's what he had to say.
And I feel good about the players we have. Would love to have some of those guys from Ohio State too. So if they want to transfer on down, we've got a Tudor's Biscuit NIL, all you can eat. So if any of those guys that run really, really fast at Ohio State like Tudor's Biscuits, I promise you, all you can eat all day if you transfer here. So, but yeah.
I don't know how to follow that.
What a dude, man. That's I love seeing that because like it's kind of tampering, but it's like joke tampering. And so it's like all the funny things in college football mixed into one. I've never had Tudor's Biscuits. Have either of you guys had them?
Never had it. I do have a friend that lives in Huntington and says that they're everywhere and says that they're pretty much the only place that people will go to fast food wise, which to me is something I would never imagine, really. It's just a biscuit place. Now, I feel like here in Columbus, we have all these different options, but my friend has been telling me that people will argue about which specific Tudor's is the best Tudor's in Huntington. And for me, it's like it's a chain. They all make the food the same way. The service probably very similar, but no, they're like, this Tudor's, this one's the best. This one right by campus, they serve the best food. And so it's definitely a cultural thing over there in Huntington for sure.
That's amazing. I feel like I really want to try one. I mean, he's throwing out all you can eat if he gets some Buckeyes to transfer. I mean, that's tempting. I think they're probably doing pretty well NIL up here, but I really want to try one. And we get there. We get through West Virginia quite a bit for, traveling to Pittsburgh for youth hockey and things like that. So I'm going to make it a mission to try one, and I will report back. Ryan Day, to his credit, man, he was great about it too. He said, quote, "I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's very thorough in his approach. I thought the way he handled that was great. Sometimes as coaches, we take ourselves too seriously. I thought he had a great moment there." And he's right. Coaches do take themselves away. I mean, there's a few of them that don't, but most of them do. And maybe Ryan could have used some of that advice when he challenged Lou Holtz last year and kind of approach that a little differently. You learn a little bit, live and learn. Jeremiah Smith news yesterday, he signed as a Red Bull athlete. I got photos of the guy holding the cans and the hat. He's the first ever college football athlete to sign with Red Bull. They've got some athletes in other sports, but man, he's getting paid. doing some back of the napkin math at, what he's getting from some of his NIL opportunities that were from the two collectives in town, the 1870 Society and the Foundation, and then stuff like this layered on top of it. And you start to think, man, like, what's the NFL like rookie max? And like, is there a potential scenario someday, guys, where there's so much money to be made at college that like, you saw some of these guys in Ohio State stick around last year, but like nobody at like kind of Jeremiah Smith's level, right? Is there a scenario someday where, I understand what Stroud get, like 20 a year, 18 a year, something like that. So maybe it's out of this league and nowhere that can be touched by anything NIL or endorsements, but getting these guys paid and taken care of, really cool to see.
Yeah, it feels onesie-twosie to me. Like there could be some of those scenarios where you've got, unicorns like Jeremiah, but for the most part, obviously, I think the NFL will pay more. But hey, if you're stuck here for 3 years or stuck in college for 3 years like he is, hey, at least you're going to, build up a pretty good nest egg before you ever even get to the league.
Yeah, and those are important to re-recruit, right? I mean, not saying that he would consider leaving, but USC did make a run at Marv before his
still
last
leverage.
season.
Yeah, even if you don't plan on leaving.
Teams will absolutely make a run at Jeremiah. I mean, I'm sure the Florida school, I'm sure Miami's going to be in his ear this offseason as well. So very important aspect of that total package and compensation. Speaking of Marv, man, he finally arrived in the NFL. Had 130 yards, 2 touchdowns in first quarter of the Cards' 41-10 win over the Rams Sunday. Did not win an NFL Rookie of the Week, but won something better. He was named Nickelodeon's Valuable Player, the MVP, and was slimed by teammate Paris Johnson Jr. And here's footage of that.
Is he in charge of giving me? Is he in charge of doing this? Is it really cold?
That's really cool to see because some Cardinal fans and other NFL fans were kind of questioning his effort after he recorded just 1 catch for 4 yards in his debut, a 34-28 loss to the Bills. So I did see some of the footage. I'm sure you guys did as well. And they were questioning, precision on routes, effort on routes. And, being the massive homer I am, I'm like, I'm just going to chalk this up to him getting acclimated to the NFL. Sure enough, week 2, he makes us all look very good about thinking that. You guys thoughts on that, or the week 1, week 2 bounce back?
For me, the only thing that you could never question about Marvin Harrison Jr. when he was at Ohio State was his effort. He was out on the indoor field so much using that Monarch machine that Brian Hartline had to make a rule that anytime he went out there, he had to bring another receiver with him. That's how much he worked. That's how hard he worked. So I don't know, it just kind of felt like a fluke to me. Maybe, as you're saying, he was just kind of getting acclimated to the league, kind of getting adjusted to the speed of it. But yeah, it was no surprise to me to see him excel in the way that he did that second week, and to see that I think he'll continue with that success as the year goes on. He's somebody that's just too good not to have the success, especially with a quarterback as talented as Kyler Murray throwing him the football.
Well, it's the NFL. I mean, Justin Jefferson doesn't go 8 for 120 every week. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Sometimes the game plans even dictate maybe you're going to do a little bit more of this and a little bit less of that. But yeah, I mean, he just got to keep doing what he does, and he's going to be just fine. I did like the meme though that talked about how Marvin, is primed for a big year, and it's a really good duo. And you see him, but then you just see like this tiny little bit of Kyler's head because he's a little shorter, certainly for a quarterback. But yeah, he just needs to keep. Yeah, just keep lining up, running your routes. Good things are going to happen for Marvin.
Marshall Thundering Herd come to Ohio Stadium Saturday. It's a big noon game on Fox. Line's 40 right now, opened at 40.5. So Buckeyes heavily favored to win that game. Chris, you found this out, man. The Marshall nickname for the school, or I guess their team name at one point in time in the 1930s. They were called the Booger Cats. Is that real?
Yeah, they were called the Booger Cats for just a little while. Like, were you called the Booger Cat like in the early 80s, or was that somebody else?
Just Marshall, man.
Just Marshall.
Why don't they use that name anymore? I don't get it.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue.
Should bring back the Booger Cats. Head coach Charles Huff, we talked about him earlier. He's 23-18, his third season at Marshall. Was a running back coach at some really good schools. Penn State, Alabama, coached Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, some really good backs through the years. Bucks are 2-0 all time in the series. Last meeting 2010, they won 45-7. Terrell Pryor with 247 passing and 3 touchdowns. And Brandon Sane, that's the game he went off for 9 for 103 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then 2004, Bucks won that game on a 54-yard field goal from Mike Nugent, pretty much at the whistle.
Trestle ball.
Santonio Holmes, 10 for 224 and 2 touchdowns in that game. That was, you're right, Chris, that was the epitome of Trestle football. You're like, why do we need a kick to beat Marshall at the buzzer at home?
Punt and play defense.
Pretty much. He was probably playing for that kick the entire game,
Well, 04, not exactly a juggernaut, right? I think that was the last time Ohio State averaged. Was that the year they averaged 4 yards a carry? Like literally like 4.0 with Lydell and Mo Wells. I think it was like the worst rushing attack like in the last like 30 or 40 years.
That's a tough backfield, man. You're like, who do we give the ball to? we need 4 yards. I don't know if we're going to get it. Marshall, again, 1-1. They beat FCS Stony Brook 45-3 in the opener.
I prefer to play Stony Brook 12 games in a row. That would be awesome. Everyone would love me.
And then lost to Virginia Tech 31-14 a week later. Off last weekend, so they should be healthy and entering this one on a bit of little bit rested. Air raid offense. Quarterback Earl was the guy versus Virginia Tech. Can't really pass that well for no shuffling quarterbacks. Yeah. You got an air raid quarterback that's completing 44% of his passes for the season.
I watched the condensed Virginia Tech game, like the highlights, or it was just a lot of lateral stuff. So it's still air raid because you're 4 wide and all of that. But yeah, Stone Earl was. I think they like that he can run the ball a little bit, but yeah, I don't know if he's gonna take the top off Ohio State's defense tomorrow.
No, I think the defense is going to be able to kind of dictate what they want him to do in this one. 2 running back systems so far. They got Turner and Houston, and Earl will also be part of the rushing attack. But Houston's getting about 3.2 a carry. Turner, 15.9 a carry, which is really impressive. He's got long runs of 80 and 69 yards this season. And then Earl, the quarterback, gets about almost 5 a carry. 35th in the country in rushing at 203 yards per game. And then lastly, that defense, man, they pretty decent defense, man. They're going to show up and play D. They just ran out of gas against the Hokies when that loss to Virginia Tech. 4.1 yards a carry. They held Virginia Tech to 38th nationally, giving up just 3.1 a carry. Of course, that Stony Brook game helps that out. Should be fun. A nice final out of conference matchup for the Buckeyes, and some things that may test them and some things that may not. First of all, any rust for the Buckeyes? Do you guys anticipate seeing any of that after a week off?
You always could run into that coming off a bye week, but I think by and large, Ryan Day coming out of a bye week has been excellent. Whenever he's had time to prepare, he's given Ohio State a game plan to succeed. And this is the first time, too, I just now considering it as I'm saying it, that Ryan Day will be coming out of a bye week not as Ohio State's lead play caller on offense. So I'm wondering, too, what Ryan Day and Chip Kelly cooked up these past 2 weeks. They're not going to reveal all of it, obviously, against Marshall, but there could just be things that Ohio State is just fine-tuning on offense that you could see come to play in this game. But I do think that there could be some exciting things that happen, maybe a few drives that don't go as well as they maybe planned. Maybe the execution's not quite as there, but this team will get comfortable and they'll get going. And I think it'll all look okay.
Defensively, Chris, are you thinking shutout? Where you at with that?
I mean, it's hard to not give up touchdowns forever. I don't care who you're playing. So I do expect, I think I turned in like 45-7 or something like that. I do think Marshall will get a touchdown. Turner's obviously a threat. They got a receiver that's decent, even though the quarterback's bad. So we'll see what happens. But knowing Ohio State wants to play some depth, that kind of thing, I do have Marshall getting in the end zone this week.
A lot of 10 personnel they're going to face, man. The one wide out, 4 wide receivers. Some limited huddling. They'll be stretched, man. They'll be tested a little bit. It's kind of, I love this about college football is that you get so many different looks from week to week, far more than the NFL. So will be fun to see how they respond to that. And then, to me, a really interesting component of this game is we've seen Brandon Inniss on punt returns, breath of fresh air. And now he seems like he's kind of making a move to take maybe more of the kickoff returns. I know they're going to still have Ballard back there, and they wouldn't say who they would have as their primary going out for the opening kickoff. What do you guys see happening at KOR?
I think with Ohio State, you're always looking for somebody that can finally get through and score a touchdown. It's been so long, especially on kick and punts, that they've reached the promised land and that they've had somebody with the explosiveness and the electricity to take one all the way back. And I think whenever Ryan Day talks about Brandon Inniss, you can just tell he feels confident that Inniss is the guy that can get that done. And so I think as many times as you can get the ball in his hands, knowing that he is that fourth receiver behind Emeka Egbuka and behind Jeremiah Smith and behind Carnell Tate, you're going to want to do it. So I think that Inniss, he might not be the first one out there on Saturday, but I think eventually as the season goes on, you have to see him there as that number one kick returner.
And Chris, do you feel bad at all for Ballard if that happens?
I don't. I mean, I don't say that flippantly, but this is big time college football. The best people need to play. I honestly feel a little bit now that I wonder how much now of him being back there as the number one is kind of throwing him a bone because of where he's at on the receiver depth chart. Quite honestly, it's a way to, keep a guy gauged. You never know what's going to happen. You want to keep your guys, ready in case something happens, and you do need to use him more even as a wide receiver. So I've always kind of felt like, man, is that the play? Because even last year on punt return, he was a number one punt returner. He averaged like 4 yards a return. I mean, and that goes on the whole unit, right? It's not just the return man, but Ballard was not electric in any capacity. So I think, having Inniss back there, makes sense. If you trust him enough on punts, it's a hell of a lot easier to catch a kickoff than it is a punt. Mm-hmm. So I like the move if that's the way it goes. And, kind of your point, Chase, I mean, it's Marshall, so I don't know how many kickoffs there's actually going to be, right? But I do think you need to get Inniss back there now if you feel like that's a better option for you long term, so that he can get some kickoffs in these games that don't matter as much, so that maybe can break one in a game where it could be something that shifts the tide.
Going to put you guys on the spot really quickly. Do we see a punt return or kick return for a touchdown this season from Ohio State?
I'd say yes. I don't know which opponent it'll happen against, but the first game, Akron, Brandon Inniss was electric. The second game against Western Michigan, they did a little bit of a better job covering it. But I think at some point he'll break through there and he'll score.
It's tough to do. I mean, the numbers say to say no. But I hear you. I think if it's going to happen, I do think it probably would be on punt return. And you hit it. I think Inniss had 4 punt returns against Western Michigan, but his longest was 3. There really wasn't much room to do anything.
Yeah, Marshall may be a good opportunity to do that. Speaking of Marshall, some fun alumni of note. Billy Crystal, I didn't know this. Chris, you threw this on here. Went to Marshall on a baseball scholarship as a freshman. So a New York City kid going to Marshall, that's got to be quite kind of the culture shock to go from New York City to Huntington, West Virginia.
Probably a shock too when he got there to play baseball and they suspended the program.
Oh, by the way, your scholarship's gone. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
you got to pay your way now, and you don't get to play baseball. Yeah, he eventually went back to NYU, and I don't think he played ball for them. He just kind of went to school and turned out to be one of the great comedians of our time. Brad Smith, who is the current president of Marshall, former CEO of Intuit, which is TurboTax and QuickBooks and all that stuff. His wife, Alice Smith, went to Ohio State for undergrad. You got to wonder if she may be cheering for a different program and he might be cheering for this weekend. I mean, she went to law school in Akron, so some Ohio ties for her. Big Ten is starting to enter into conference games. Obviously, Ohio State, many others, not quite there yet. But it's kind of time for some teams to separate a little bit, and we're going to see that over the course of the season. Chase, we've talked a lot on the show about how wild the last few weeks of the season will be when it's just a free-for-all to get into that conference championship game, and there's no weak path for the West team to kind of, Northwestern to sneak in at 8-4 or something. Like, what are we doing? So I'm really looking forward to that, and we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty. We have 2 ranked games this weekend in the Big Ten starting tonight, and I didn't know that I had this game on my preseason calendar for being like must-watch, but I'm kind of excited to tune into this one, man. Tonight on Fox, you got number 24 Illinois at number 22 Nebraska. Both teams 3-0. Nebraska's a 7.5-point favorite in this one. What are you guys looking for in this, and who do you like?
This game is interesting. As you're saying, I think entering the year, I wouldn't have expected either of these teams to really be on my radar as teams to watch. But I'm curious to continue seeing the development of Dylan Raiola. I think that he is someone that obviously was an Ohio State commit at one point, but he's kind of taken hold of that job and he's running with it. You know, it didn't really seem like there was ever going to be a question that he'd be the QB1 going there. And I don't know, it seems like he's impressed me the first couple of weeks. He'll kind of get a ranked test here. I'll see what he does.
3:30 Saturday, we've got CBS game, number 11 USC 2-0 at number 18 Michigan. Of course, the Wolverines are 2-1 after getting thumped by the Longhorns a couple weeks ago. USC favored by 5, a little higher earlier in the week. This is a game that, Ohio State game will be over. This is the next one you turn to, and it doesn't take much to get Ohio State fans to cheer for anyone playing Michigan. For me, this is a game where are they really as bad as they looked against Texas? Because, I don't think any of us believe that USC is as good as Texas. But if USC can win that game by 10 or more, then all of a sudden, man, that Connor Stein stuff comes back to them again. You guys are not good without cheating. Really, really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great one to watch. It's intriguing because, you mentioned them looking terrible against Texas, but they didn't exactly look great last weekend either against Arkansas State. I know it was 28-18, and there was a couple, late scores there for Arkansas State. Michigan was obviously in control, but they still didn't look great doing it. Obviously, Davis Warren threw 3 picks, and now he's, going to be on the sidelines. I think Alex Orji now is going to be the answer, so we'll see that. But I do think it's be an interesting matchup. I mean, USC on the road at Michigan. It's still a road game. You mentioned the spread was down to 5 on some sites. I bet MGM still has it at 6, but Bill Connolly's SP Plus has Michigan winning 30-26. But yeah, interesting. It's going to maybe come down to the quarterbacks for one, see what Orji can do. What has he got? 7 collegiate passing attempts under his belt, something like that. Miller Moses has looked good for the Trojans, but this will be his first road start. But man, if I'm USC, we talked about Alex Grinch is gone. Their defense is kind of functional. You've just got to load up and stop the run and say, hey, see if you can beat us, one-on-one as a quarterback. And I'm just not sure that, Orji's going to be able to do that. So if USC can stop the run early, I definitely like USC, but are they good enough to win by 10 plus, 14 plus? Man, I sure as hell hope so, but I don't know if I think USC is really that good as much as I think Michigan just might be that bad.
Yeah, I could see that. I'll be cheering for a double-digit win. And,
hell yeah.
And Grinch gone is enough for me to give me hope that can happen. Miller Moss is great. I wonder how they're feeling about, could imagine for a minute being a Michigan fan. You're like, all right, we're going with Alex Orji. And, you cannot get excited about that at all. The guy can't pass. He can do some things on the ground, but, man, I hope this gets away from them, and I think it will. I think they easily cover the 5, 6, whatever. And I could see it maybe getting to 10. And if that happens, watch out because they're in for a bad time from the rest of the country because they're essentially the Astros of college football, and they mistakenly think that only Ohio State fans are mad at them. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And we're probably the maddest. Let's get it straight. But there are other fans just as mad or nearly as mad. Other conference games this week: 7 p. on FS1 Saturday. Northwestern 2-1 at Washington 2-1. Huskies favored by 10.5, coming off a tough loss to Washington State. And how fun was that win for Washington State? You get to beat the team that left you thinking they're too good to play in your conference, and you come back and beat them. Need you to be a little better than that Huskies. And then 7:30 on NBC, we're putting Iowa in primetime on national TV. Is America ready for that?
America's going to be tired, be asleep at halftime.
2-1 Iowa. It's the night we all get to bed early and get a lot of sleep. 2-1 Iowa, 2-1 Minnesota. Of course, the Gophers lost an early season game to North Carolina in their first week. And Iowa favored by 3, but they're, again, coming off a tough rivalry type loss. Lost to Iowa State. I don't know if you guys saw that game, but they gave Iowa State that game, and they had control of the game for 98% of it and just watched it evaporate.
Yeah, I had Iowa. We watched the last little bit of it at the OSU game. I'm like, how could they possibly blow this bet up? But they did. They did. Don't bet on Iowa, man. That's a hard lesson you had to learn. Mm-hmm. The big story for me in the Big Ten right now is how real is Indiana? Got a new coach, Kurt Cignetti, who talks the most shit of any coach in college football. And I think sports need that. As long as it's not my coach, I'm cool with that. And he just, he had the opener, they introduced him in a basketball game after he was hired in January or whatever.
And he gets on the court, kind of like a Tressel moment. He gets the microphone, he's talking to the crowd. And he says, and Purdue sucks, and everyone's like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to. And then he's like, Ohio State sucks too. And you're like, what do we do, man? How are we catching strays? So I really appreciate his enthusiasm. He's got him buzzing, man. 3-0. Got already have a conference win, 42-13 at UCLA last week. 31-7 over FIU in the opener. 77-3 over, let's be real, a really bad Western Illinois team. But they beat them like a good team should. The 77 against Western Illinois broke the school's scoring record for a single game. The old record was set in 1901 against Franklin College. I don't even know where that is. And that was 76 points. UCLA game last week was supposed to be a showcase for UCLA, nationally televised, their first game in the Big Ten. And they get trucked by Indiana. I guarantee you their athletic department were not thinking about getting trucked by Indiana. We're like, let's go to the Big Ten. Like, they're like, that's a game we're going to win. I love the guy. I'm happy to cheer for them. First IU coach to begin his tenure with 3 wins in 17 years. Got a noon game against Charlotte on BTN Saturday. Hoosiers favored by 28.5. Probably going to go to 4-0. How real is this team?
They're real. I love everything about this program right now. It's just exciting, I think, to watch Indiana football, which is not something I think I would have ever imagined myself saying. But really, I mean, Cignetti can coach ball. He brought a lot of the guys over from James Madison that can also play ball too. So this Indiana team is not the Indiana teams of old. I know they have the kind of fluky 2020 year when they had Michael Penix Jr. as their quarterback and they were challenging Ohio State for that Big Ten championship spot. But outside of that, Indiana's been irrelevant for a long time. And it seems now that Cignetti's kind of putting them on the map, which is exciting for the Big Ten and exciting for college football fans.
Yeah, they're athletic. I mean, you said it, Chase. I feel like maybe 4 or 5 guys from James Madison are starting from them. It's definitely a good chunk of guys. And Curtis Rourke's been really good. 74% completion, 7 touchdowns, no picks. Just looks in control out there. That UCLA game, I forget what the spread was. It was like 3.5 or something. I mean, it was not a big spread, and they just completely throttled UCLA. So yeah, they're looking pretty good. We'll see what happens when the competition ratchets up. But yeah, if nothing else, the momentum. I mean, this guy's already been worth it just for the fact that we are sitting here talking about Indiana for a couple minutes. I don't know when that's ever happened besides 2020 with Penix, as you mentioned, Chase.
And gotta love it too. Curtis Rourke, the quarterback, is the rare Big Ten quarterback from Ontario. Don't see many of those guys in the Big Ten, but I'm a fan, man. And you know what? I hope they beat every team I don't like in the Big Ten, and I'll cheer for them in every game. But Ohio State, we just touched on how real Indiana is. How cooked is Florida State? Man, 0-3 following that 20-12 loss to Memphis Saturday. By the way, they paid Memphis $1.3 million for that pleasure. It's always fun to see buy games and you get your ass kicked. The only winless Power 4 team, and this is a team that was AP top 10, the first team in poll history, which is almost 90 years old at this point in time, to start the season in the top 10 and lose all of their first 3 games to unranked teams. And they got a real chance to go to 0-4 because 7 p.m. Saturday on ESPN2, Cal rolls into Doak Campbell Stadium. Cal's 3-0. They've already got a road win at Auburn, and you've maybe seen the memes out there from Cal at this point in time because I think an Auburn assistant athletic director made a quote about how they didn't honor their military as much as Auburn did. It's like the dumbest thing to argue about in the world. So Cal's just been making a bunch of woke. They're calling it, woke Campbell Stadium. They're saying they're going to have like diversity hiring seminars and critical race theory. There's the Cal Bear mascot getting off the plane holding critical race theory books. Like they're having a good time with it. Florida State's favored by 2.5 somehow. I don't know. I don't bet, but like, man, if I did, I don't know if I'd like that at all. Do you guys think Florida State gets a W here? Is Cal going to give it to them?
I'd be staying away from it. I know that much. Speaking of betting, though, I saw that Florida State became the first team this season to cover the under on their win total already. I think
Under 9.5
was like 9.5, and they already have assured the under.
They're out of it, man. All the while trying to sue their way out of the SEC or the ACC, thinking they're too good for the conference. So this has been really special to watch. Chase, are you? Are they going to get that W, or are you in on Cal for this one?
Well, one, I did like a tweet. They call it the Calgorithm. I liked a tweet, and it is now my entire feed, which has been quite entertaining as of the past week. I think, I could be wrong about this. I'm very new to the betting scene, but I feel like typically if teams are even, the home team gets about a 3-point spread. Right. So I think they're judging here that Florida State is talented enough to beat Cal, but they're not confident enough that they could really beat them if the game were not on their home field. So maybe their home crowd gives them enough of an advantage to get it done, but I don't know. I like Chris. I would stay away from this game. That's a scary number.
Sure is. And you have to worry if you're Mike Norvell about your team just quitting at this point in time too, because you're number 10 to enter, you're 0-3 really quickly. I guess they don't have the money to buy him out because they've got to account for the 20 to 25 million in player salaries coming up next year. So I thought at one point in time he was going to be a good coach, and he looked like it for 99% of last season. But is that just you got a really good quarterback that makes the coach look really good? So tough living being a Florida State fan. I don't know what they're going to do with that ACC deal. They're still in court, still doing discovery, still having fun with each other. But the ACC has to kind of side eye them right now and be like, what are you even doing, man? Like, you and Clemson are trying to get out. You're like a combined 1-4 basically, trying to get out of the league, saying you're too good. Speaking of too good, man, Kyle McCord continues to cook. He was off last weekend, and they're going to face Stanford on Saturday. It's another winnable game for them. They're 2-0. They win that one, they'll probably be ranked at 3-0. He's got 735 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, completing about 70% of his passes. And we're just bringing this up because he appeared on the Rise and Shine podcast with Sirius XM's Adam Shine this week. And Shine kind of teed him up to maybe take a dump on Ohio State or Ryan Day or their fans. And to McCord's credit, man, he was really classy about it. Here's what he had to say.
No, I appreciate all of them, and I still root for Ohio State. I got a lot of friends that are still on the team. I still talk to a few of the coaches, so I still root for them. I'm cheering those guys on, and I appreciate the fans too. I met a lot of great people in the community who still have been reaching out and supporting me, so that's been awesome. And on my end, there's nothing but love for the Buckeyes.
That was great. Nothing but love for the Buckeyes. And, fans are simple creatures. If the guy that left and maybe there's a little bit of bad blood gets out there and says something like he's got nothing but love for your team, like you saw it on 11 Warriors yesterday when we posted the article about McCord saying this. You saw all the comments like, I wish him the best, man, only the best for him. It's kind of a turn there based on what he had to say. So I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was a really smart and mature response out of him.
Yeah, it just feels like a win-win, for Ohio State and for Kyle McCord. Ohio State's got Will Howard now. Kyle McCord is thriving at Syracuse. And I think it just has been a realization of the kind of quarterback Kyle McCord maybe always was. He maybe just is a little bit overrated coming out of high school in terms of the recruiting rankings. And now he's found a spot that appreciates him for the quarterback he can be. He wasn't all that bad as Ohio State's quarterback last year. He just didn't win the game that Ohio State needed to win. And, now he's balling over in Syracuse. And that team really, given their schedule, it wouldn't surprise me if they make a push for the playoff at the end of the year. They have a really good schedule that could tee them up well for that.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like we hit him every week, right? Like it's hard to say it without it sounding bad, but it's like he's in a second tier conference. He's a upper echelon of a second tier quarterback, and it's lining up perfectly for him. So good for him.
Yeah, and that conference is a little bit of a mess, man. We just talked about FSU. Clemson's already got a bad loss. So how storybook would it be for Ohio State to run into Syracuse in the CFP? I mean, awesome. you talk about storylines forever, and Bucks would be heavily favored in that one if that did happen. I have to think. I can't imagine a worse loss though. If they were if McCord were to somehow beat Ohio State, we'd have to unplug the website because people would lose their minds.
Pull an MGO blog and put
we would. We just shut it down. We're like a cartoon site now. We're doing we're doing Pokemon now. We're not doing football because there've been some tough ones through the years. That would be a tough one. But again, I think Ohio State would handle them. But would you guys want to see that game? Is that something you'd want to see, or would you say just shy away from it?
I would love that. I mean, forget, they could show McCord, this, that, and the other. But like you said, the point is they would be heavily favored. And as an Ohio State fan, whatever the easiest path is to the title, sign me up for it. Syracuse in a playoff game, you can sign me up for that.
Chase, absolutely. I think And even then, it'd be a win-win, right? Like McCord, I think if you're Syracuse, you're not really expecting that you're going to knock off Ohio State in the playoffs. So as long as McCord isn't the reason that the team loses the game for whatever reason, I think Syracuse fans would hail him as a great figure for their program, being able to lead into the playoff. And you weren't able to beat Ohio State. Like, nobody was expecting you to be here anyway. So I think it would work out well for both parties.
That's a great point. And if that were to happen, McCord's bad luck would be not facing like some of the really bad pass defenses that Ohio State's had in the last 5 years. Like, he's going to get a really, really good defense that probably knows him really well. All right, folks, it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's your price? We dive into the things in life we could do for the right price. We're talking about the fun, harmless stuff that doesn't hurt anyone or break the law, like driving 10 miles an hour under the speed limit for an entire year, or entering a professional slap contest. What's your price? And Chase, I know you're new to this, but those are past questions. And we would do the 10 mile an hour under the speed limit. We'd enter slap contests. There's different prices to get you to do these things, but like, everyone's got a price. This one comes to us courtesy of our own Josh below. He says, you guys might have seen the video last week of Matt Leinart asking Urban Meyer how much it would take for him to coach the Michigan Wolverines. And here's what Urban had to say.
How much money would it take a year for you to coach at the University of Michigan?
Well, 10 negotiating right now. And
10 mil. I offer you 10 mil a year. You taking the job?
Negative.
For 10 mil a year, you're not going back?
This is what they pay me here at Big Noon.
25.
Maybe not 25. I'm taking it.
You heard that first. Coach Meyer, if they offer you 25 mil a year, he's taking the job.
That's interesting. He no way for 10 million. But Herb said he would coach the Wolverines for 25 million, and that just illustrates the point of this whole exercise more than anything else. So we're going to use that, Chris. And Chase, I know you're a writer. You're supposed to be objective. You're not an Ohio State fan, even though you have some ties to the school and you went to school there. So we can switch yours up, Chase, and make yours. How much would it cost for you, or what's your price to coach, the Steelers for an entire season? But for Chris and I, what's your price to coach the Michigan Wolverines for a season? And all the assumptions are in place. You're a good coach. You know how to run a team. You're capable, and they would hire you and all this stuff. Chris, what's your price to coach, the Michigan? You're walking into Schembechler Hall for meetings. You're coming out to that fight song. You're wearing those colors. You got the Jordan brand on. I mean, you're in that environment. You're at pep rallies. You're speaking to boosters. You love your team. How much?
Man, I don't know, because my first instinct is I would do it for free because I'm torpedoing the program. Right?
Go and 12.
Yeah.
Orgy, get in there, left guard.
I'm burning it down. Violations left and right. I'm doing everything where it'll hurt beyond this year. That
all right, okay. We have to throw that in. We have to say you can't torpedo them. You have to give it like a good effort. You try to make the playoff, and you can't commit obvious violations. Yeah. Although that is the plan if you do get it. Just so we're all clear, if they do hire you, that's what you're doing.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know if it would take much more than what Ryan Day's making.
See, you're that high? I think I would do it for half of what Ryan Day's paid.
So basically, Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore's making about 5 mil.
What if you're good, though? Like, what if you're really good at this, man?
Then you parlay it to a better job.
Yeah, but you're
like, I'm going to Marshall. I'm going to a better job. I think I would do it because you're going to hear about it from your buddies. It's going to suck. You're going to hate your life. But I think like for 5 mil, I would give it a really good effort. I really, because like 5 mil is 5 mil.
Yeah.
And Chase, I don't know where you are if you want to do that question or if you want to do it for the Steelers or Ravens, but think of the team you hate most that didn't compromise your objectivity. And what is it for you? What's that price for you?
It's funny, like thinking about, as you mentioned, I have some Ohio State ties, so doing the Michigan thing, I don't even know. I think it sounds like a little bit naive to say I wouldn't do it for any number, but if I were to translate it for an NFL thing, I'm a Browns fan, so it's like, Steelers or Ravens. My allegiance to the Browns isn't quite as strong, where it's like, the Browns have been punching up at those two teams my entire life. The rivalry that the Browns have with the Steelers is one completely one-sided for the Steelers. I really don't like the Ravens just because of the whole Art Modell thing. But I would say that the number for that would be pretty low.
Let's step back. Let's step back then. That's good to know. So Chase, the twist on your question is, how much would it take for you to coach the Ravens while Art Modell owned the team?
Ooh. Like there's still Cleveland people that like
that's your boss.
That they go like they piss on Art Modell's grave. Like that's the kind of hatred that they have for Art Modell. So I don't know. It's like, in both instances, I'd be taking over for a legendary coach, right? Like Mike Tomlin's the coach of the Steelers right now. You got John Harbaugh, both Super Bowl champion head coaches. So I think the expectations for whoever replaces them aren't going to be that high. So I would say the number is pretty low. A couple million, maybe. I don't know how much those guys make, but it wouldn't really take that much for me to be able to coach that. The NFL is a great gig too. A lot less intensive than college.
Part of this, though, is, and it probably hits Chris and I harder with the Ohio State-Michigan game, but like coaching against the team you love. And you would be out there for a couple mils saying, I'm going to get my Ravens or Steelers prepared, and we're going to beat this Browns team. You're in the locker room hyping your guys up, telling them no one on the Browns can block. I mean, you're able to do all that.
Yeah, I think so. I can do it.
And Chris, you're still at 10?
No, you talked me down. You made a good point. I'd probably do it for less than 5. 4.9 if you're at 5.
I mean, you're still. How many times do you have to figure you're going to hear that fight song through the course of the season? Hot take. I think their fight song's pretty awesome, honestly. It's a classic fight song. I'll go that far. I don't like hearing it though. You know what I'm saying? I can respect it and not like it at the same time.
Yeah.
So if calculate in, you're hearing that about 200 times during the year.
It's like the
You're going to dinner at the Elk Club and outside of Detroit and talking about how good your team's going to be. You're saying "Go Blue" at the end of every interview. So
talking about Schembechler like he was a good human.
Yes,
all kinds of bad stuff.
Yes. Talking up Alex Orji like this is our guy. I really think he can pass. Like
Taylor Lewin, love him, great guy.
Defending Connor Stallions. Like there's a lot to this, man. Like there's a lot to it.
5.1. All right.
5.1. I think I'm still at 5. 5's a lot of money. That's like, that's really good money. But I don't know. In a pinch, maybe I could be talked into doing it for 4.
If you did it for 5, would you hire me as a coordinator for like 1? And that way I would just be kind of an afterthought in the grand scheme, but I could still.
Oh yeah, if our friends are going to roast me for it, they're going to roast both of us, right? I'd somehow figure out a way to get you involved. I'd make you the guy that went and did the advanced scouting from the 50-yard line of future game. That's Chris Stallions over there. He got his manifesto and his Excel sheets and all that. Yeah. So okay, I'm at 5. Chris is 5 at 1. Chase is a little under. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, but a couple million. Let's talk about it right now. It's like, man, that'd be super easy.
That's good money. That's like, and you got that contract. So you got a car allowance. It's probably $1,200 a month. You've got a country club membership. You got 20, 30 hours of private jet time each year. So some of that stuff's really nice, even if it's
change your name when you're done. You can change your name, get some plastic surgery when it's over. Like, it's like it never happened.
And I can see Urban. Urban doesn't need the money like we do. I can see him saying 25 mil is his number. Like he's at a different earning stature in life than the three of us are. So I get why he says 25, but sadly I'd come in quite a bit under 25 to do that job. That's a fun one. Let's end things with rapid 5 quick answers to the 5 most pressing questions of the week. Got a hot one to start. 1-word answer. Be as quickly as you can. Is JT Tuimoloau overrated?
No.
I agree. Not anymore.
Fair.
I think he was.
Who leads Ohio State in tackles this season?
Sonny.
I was also going to say Sonny. Yeah, I think Sonny's there.
I think Sonny's number 1 with Lathan number 2 is where I'm at.
Yeah.
Rank these Ohio State running backs in order of greatness. Archie, Byers, Eddie, Zeke, and Dobbins.
I would. Archie's the gold standard, right? I'd hope he's probably number 1 for all of us. For me, I would probably then go Eddie. I'd go Zeke, then Dobbins, then Byers.
I'll go Archie, Zeke, Dobbins, Eddie, Byers.
Whoa, we got an Eddie hater. Ooh.
Not an Eddie hater. He's
takes. Where do you have Lydell Ross on that list?
Outside the top 100.
Who is the best college mascot?
What's the cow mascot? Ollie? I think it's Ollie.
Oshie, right?
Oshie. I'll go Oshie. Hopefully this gets picked up by the algorithm.
Oshie's having a week, man.
Oh, yeah. Let's get this clip.
Did you guys see real quick, I don't mean to cut us up. Did you see the seating chart? They're going to stripe out Doak Campbell Stadium. Did you guys see that one?
Yes.
Chris, did you see it?
No.
Oh my God, I had one row that was like the capitalism is bad, wear green, purple rows, open borders. They had like the whole stadium.
Did not see.
Yeah.
Best mascot. I like the Tulane Green Wave. I like the wave with the pissed off look on his face. I've always been. I like that one. And the Stanford Tree.
Stanford Tree's a really strong answer. Good stuff. Best television series of all time.
I'd probably go with The Wire. You guys ever seen The Wire?
Oh yeah,
that's my top
fantastic
choice too.
show.
My
I think
top
it's
choice
in the 2 hole for me. I'll probably say Breaking Bad and then The Wire.
Yeah, Breaking Bad's a great show. There's Sopranos, great show. A lot of great shows. But I got The Wire in my one spot as well. And it's probably a function of when I watched it because I was probably late 20s or whatever and probably a little more impressionable.
If it wasn't for the Doc season, I'd probably have it number 1. But I felt like one of those seasons was just total throwaway.
I think it was season 2 or 3 was Docs. And you're like, what are we even doing, man? Like... Yeah, I mean, it's fine. But
it's still awesome series. I mean,
give me Prop Joe. Give me 5 seasons of Prop Joe. That's what people want when they watch The Wire.
Put the word out. We back up.
So many memes from that show. If you haven't seen The Wire, please carve out some time to do it. That's all for us today. Again, the Bucks in action tomorrow at noon, facing the Marshall Thundering Herd. I'm excited to see Coach Huff's post-game press conference. I hope he brings some more jokes. I like the guy because he said that, so I'm not rooting for them to win, but I hope none of his players get injured or anything like that. Thanks for joining us. As always, be good to each other. Take care of each other. Go Bucks.